The envelope trembled in my hands, its crisp white edges mocking me with their perfection. I stared at the return address, willing the name to change. It didn't. Josh Turner. My ex-fiancé? You gonna open that, or just glare it to death? Harris, my colleague, leaned against my office doorway, his salt and pepper hair catching the fluorescent light. I tossed the envelope onto my desk. It's probably just junk mail. Harris raised an eyebrow. Junk mail doesn't make you look like you've seen a ghost, Naomi. With a sigh, I tore open the envelope. A gilded card slipped out, adorned with flowing script. My stomach dropped as I read the words. Well, it's a wedding invitation, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. Josh is getting married. Harris whistled low. That's rough. You okay? I nodded, not trusting my voice. As Harris retreated, giving me space, I forced myself to read the rest of the invitation. That's when I saw it. The bride's name, Laurel Burke. My hands shook as I grabbed my phone, dialing Josh's number before I could talk myself out of it. He answered on the third ring. Naomi? His voice was cautious, tinged with surprise. Why would your sister not attend her own sister's wedding? I demanded, skipping pleasantries. There was a pause. What are you talking about? The invitation, Josh. Your fiancé, Laurel Burke. Why does she have my last name? Oh. Another pause. She said you two were estranged sisters. That's why she didn't want to invite you, but I insisted. I gripped the phone tighter. We're not family. There's no past that binds us as sisters. Look, Naomi, I don't know what kind of family drama you've got going on, but there is no drama, Josh. I cut him off. I've never had a sister. Laurel is lying to you. Silence stretched between us. Then, I think you should talk to Laurel about this. Fine, I snapped. What's her number? Josh hesitated before rattling off a string of digits. I jotted them down, my handwriting barely legible. Naomi, Josh said softly. I'm sorry if this is bringing up stuff. I just thought you should know. I ended the call without responding, my fingers already dialing Laurel's number. It went straight to voicemail. Laurel, this is Naomi Burke. We need to talk about why you're telling people we're sisters. Call me back. I slammed the phone down, my mind reeling. Who was this woman, and why was she claiming to be my sister? More importantly, why was she marrying Josh? A knock at my door startled me. Harris was back, concern etched on his face. You look like you could use a drink. I nodded, grabbing my purse. As we walked to the elevator, my phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, Laurel. Stay out of my life, Naomi. You've already ruined enough. I showed Harris the message, my hands shaking. I've never even met her. How could I have ruined anything? Harris's jaw tightened. Sounds like someone's playing games. Dangerous ones. As we stepped into the elevator, my phone buzzed again. This time, it was Josh. Laurel's upset. Says you're trying to sabotage our wedding. What's going on? I stared at the message, my mind racing. What had I stumbled into? And how was I going to untangle this web of lies? The elevator doors opened, and Harris gently guided me out. Come on, he said. Let's figure this out over that drink. As we walked into the crisp evening air, I couldn't shake the feeling that this was just the beginning. Something told me that Laurel Burke was about to turn my life upside down, and I had no idea how to stop her. The cafe bustled with the lunch crowd, but I barely noticed as I sat across from Josh, my hands wrapped tightly around a mug of lukewarm coffee. His familiar face, once a source of comfort, now filled me with a mixture of anger and confusion. Naomi, I don't understand why you're making such a big deal out of this, Josh said, his tone dismissive. So what if Laurel says you're sisters? Why does it matter? I leaned forward, my voice low and intense. It matters because it's a lie, Josh. We're not family. There's no past that binds us as sisters. Josh's eyes narrowed. Are you sure about that? Maybe there's something you don't know. I think I'd know if I had a sister, I snapped. What I want to know is why Laurel is lying to you, and why you're so willing to believe her over me. He shrugged, a gesture that used to drive me crazy during our relationship. Laurel's been nothing but honest with me. Maybe you're the one who's confused. I felt my temper rising. Confused? Josh, I'm telling you the truth. Laurel and I are not related. Why can't you see that she's manipulating you? The way I see it, Josh said, leaning back in his chair, you're just jealous. You can't stand the fact that I've moved on and found someone better. His words hit me like a slap. Better? You think a liar is better? At least she's not constantly nagging me about my career, Josh retorted. Unlike you, Laurel supports my music. I laughed bitterly. Your music? Josh, when was the last time you even picked up a guitar? You gave up on your dreams years ago. His face flushed with anger. You don't know anything about my life anymore, Naomi. Laurel believes in me. She's helping me get back into the scene. And let me guess, she's funding your comeback too? I asked, suddenly seeing the situation with painful clarity. Josh's silence was all the confirmation I needed. God, Josh, I said, shaking my head. Can't you see what's happening? She's using you, just like she's using my name. You're wrong, he insisted, but I could see a flicker of doubt in his eyes. Laurel loves me. She wouldn't lie to me. Then explain why she's pretending to be my sister, I challenged. Ask her about her family, her childhood. I bet she can't give you a straight answer. Josh's phone buzzed and he glanced at it. His face paled slightly. I have to go, he said abruptly, standing up. Laurel's waiting for me. As he turned to leave, I called out, Josh, wait. Just be careful, okay? Something's not right here. He paused, looking back at me with a mixture of emotions I couldn't quite decipher. I'll talk to Laurel, he said finally. But I think you're the one who needs to be careful, Naomi. Don't make accusations you can't back up. I watched him walk away, my mind reeling. As I gathered my things to leave, my phone chimed with a text. It was from Laurel. Stay away from Josh. You had your chance. He's mine now, and I won't let you ruin this for me. A chill ran down my spine. I quickly dialed Harris's number, needing to hear a friendly voice. Harris, it's Naomi. Can you meet me? I think I'm in trouble. As I hung up, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd just opened Pandora's box. Laurel's threat echoed in my mind, and I realized with growing dread that this was far from over. Whatever game Laurel was playing, it was clear she saw me as a threat, and I had a sinking feeling that she wouldn't stop until one of us was destroyed. I paced the length of Harris's office, my heels clicking against the polished floor. Harris watched me from behind his desk, concern etched on his face. Naomi, you need to slow down and tell me exactly what happened, he said, his voice steady and calming. I took a deep breath and sank into the chair across from him. It's Laurel. She's threatening me, Harris. And Josh, he's completely under her spell. Harris leaned forward, his brow furrowed. Start from the beginning. I recounted my confrontation with Josh, Laurel's text, and the growing sense of dread in the pit of my stomach. As I spoke, Harris's expression darkened. Laurel's always brought chaos wherever she goes, he muttered. I blinked in surprise. You know her? Harris nodded grimly. We crossed paths a few years ago. She was working as a temp in our legal department. Left quite an impression, and not a good one. What happened? I asked, my curiosity piqued. Let's just say she has a talent for manipulating people and situations to her advantage, Harris replied. She nearly cost us a major client with her schemes. I felt a chill run down my spine. And now she's set her sights on me. But why? What could she possibly gain by pretending to be my sister? Harris's eyes met mine, filled with a mixture of concern and determination. I don't know, but we're going to find out. Naomi, I think it's time you cut ties with Josh and this whole situation. It's not safe. I shook my head. I can't, Harris. If I walk away now, who knows what Laurel might do? She could ruin my reputation, my career. We won't let that happen, Harris assured me, reaching across the desk to squeeze my hand. The gesture sent a flutter through my chest, catching me off guard. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was a text from an unknown number. I know your secret, Naomi. Meet me at Riverside Park at 7 p.m. if you don't want Josh to find out. My hand shook as I showed Harris the message. What secret? I whispered, panic rising in my throat. I don't have any secrets. Harris's jaw clenched. It's a bluff. She's trying to scare you. Well, it's working, I admitted. What should I do? We'll go together, Harris said firmly. I'm not letting you face this alone. As evening fell, Harris and I made our way to Riverside Park. The setting sun cast long shadows across the grass, and a cool breeze rustled the leaves. We found a bench with a clear view of the surrounding area and sat down to wait. At precisely 7 p.m., a figure emerged from the shadows. Laurel. She walked towards us, her face a mask of cool confidence. I said, "Come alone," she sneered, eyeing Harris. "Whatever you have to say to me, you can say in front of Harris," I replied, grateful for his solid presence beside me. Laurel's eyes narrowed. "Fine. Have it your way." She turned to me, her voice dripping with venom. I know about the money, Naomi, the funds you embezzled from your last job to pay for your mother's rehab. I felt the blood drain from my face. How could she possibly know about that? I'd gone to great lengths to keep it hidden, even from Josh. Harris's hand found mine, squeezing it reassuringly. That's a serious accusation, Laurel. I hope you have proof to back it up. Laurel smirked. Oh, I do. And unless Naomi wants it splashed all over the internet, she'll do exactly as I say. I stood up, my legs shaking, but my voice steady. What do you want from me, Laurel? Her eyes glittered with malice. I want you to disappear. Leave town, quit your job, and never contact Josh again. If you do, I'll make sure everyone knows what kind of person you really are. As Laurel's ultimatum hung in the air, I realized with growing horror that my past had finally caught up with me, and now it threatened to destroy everything I'd worked so hard to build. The church bells chimed as Harris and I approached the ornate doors. My stomach churned with a mixture of dread and determination. I smoothed my navy blue dress, a stark contrast to the sea of pastels surrounding us. You don't have to do this, Harris murmured, his hand a comforting presence on my lower back. I took a deep breath. Yes, I do. I need answers. We slipped into the back pew just as the wedding march began. Heads turned, curious whispers rippling through the crowd at our late arrival. I ignored them, my eyes fixed on Josh at the altar. He looked nervous, fidgeting with his cufflinks. Then Laurel appeared, a vision in white. Her eyes locked with mine for a brief moment, a flash of triumph in her gaze. I clenched my fists, willing myself to stay calm. The ceremony was a blur of words and rituals. I barely registered the vows, too focused on the way Josh's hands trembled as he slipped the ring onto Laurel's finger. Did he have doubts? Or was I projecting my own unresolved feelings? As the newlyweds made their way down the aisle, Laurel's arm looped possessively through Josh's. I felt a sudden wave of clarity. This wasn't about Josh anymore. It was about uncovering the truth behind Laurel's lies. At the reception, Harris and I kept to ourselves, observing from a corner table. Laurel flitted from guest to guest, her laughter tinkling like shattered glass. Harris muttered, "Watch how she works the room." I nodded, noticing how Laurel subtly guided conversations, always keeping herself at the center of attention. She's been planning this for a long time. Suddenly, Josh appeared at our table, his face flushed from champagne. "Naomi, I'm glad you came," he said, his words slightly slurred. "Can we talk? Alone?" I glanced at Harris, who gave me a reassuring nod. 5 minutes, I told Josh, following him to a quiet alcove. "Why are you really here?" Josh asked, his eyes searching mine. "I could ask you the same thing," I retorted. "Are you happy, Josh? Really happy?" He hesitated, and in that moment I saw a flicker of the man I once loved. I don't know, Laurel, she's intense. Sometimes I feel like I'm drowning." "Then why marry her?" I pressed. Josh's expression hardened. "Because she believes in me. She supports my music, unlike you." I laughed bitterly. "Is that what she told you? Josh, I always supported your dreams. It was you who gave up." Before he could respond, Laurel's voice cut through the air. "There you are, darling." She sidled up to Josh, her eyes cold as she regarded me. "Naomi, I'm so glad you could make it. It means so much to have my long-lost sister here." I bristled at her words. "Cut the act, Laurel. We both know we're not sisters." Laurel's smile never wavered. "Oh, Naomi, always so dramatic. Perhaps it's time I shared some family photos with our guests. I'm sure they'd love to see us growing up together." My blood ran cold. "What are you talking about?" She leaned in, her voice a venomous whisper. "I have quite the collection. It's amazing what you can do with Photoshop these days." As she sauntered away, Josh in tow, I felt the ground shift beneath my feet. Laurel wasn't just lying, she was creating an entire false history. I rushed back to Harris, my mind reeling. "We need to leave. Now." "What happened?" he asked, concern etched on his face. "Laurel's gone too far," I said, my voice shaking. "She's fabricating evidence of our supposed sisterhood. If those photos get out, my reputation, my career, everything could be ruined." Harris stood, his jaw set. "Then we fight back. It's time to uncover who Laurel really is and why she's doing this." As we left the reception, I felt a strange mix of fear and resolve. Laurel had raised the stakes, but she'd also made a critical mistake. In her attempt to trap me, she'd given me the push I needed to dig deeper into her past. "Thanks for opening my eyes, Josh," I muttered as we drove away. "You've done me a favor." The battle lines were drawn. It was time to take control of my narrative and expose Laurel's web of lies, no matter the cost. The reception hall buzzed with chatter and clinking glasses, but all I could focus on was Laurel's venomous glare from across the room. Harris squeezed my hand reassuringly as we made our way to a quiet corner. "We need to leave," I whispered urgently. "Laurel's threatening to release doctored photos of us as sisters. If those get out, my whole life could unravel." Before Harris could respond, Laurel materialized beside us, her white gown rustling ominously. "Enjoying the party, dear sister," she sneered. I straightened my spine, meeting her gaze. "Drop the act, Laurel. We both know the truth." Her eyes narrowed. "Do we? Because I have a lifetime of memories that say otherwise. Memories I'm more than happy to share with everyone here." "You're bluffing," I challenged, but my voice wavered. Laurel's laugh was cold and brittle. "Am I? Let's find out." She turned to address the room, raising her voice. "Everyone, I have a special treat. Childhood photos of my sister Naomi and me." Panic surged through me as Laurel produced a tablet from seemingly nowhere. I lunged for it, but she danced away, tapping the screen with a triumphant smirk. The room fell silent as images flickered to life on the large projection screen. There we were, Laurel and I, smiling arm in arm at a beach, blowing out birthday candles together, posing in matching school uniforms. My heart raced as I recognized backgrounds from my own childhood photos, seamlessly altered to include Laurel. Gasps and murmurs rippled through the crowd. I felt the weight of judgmental stares, the silent accusations of deceit. Even Harris looked confused, his brow furrowed as he glanced between me and the screen. "Isn't this lovely?" Laurel cooed, her voice dripping with false sweetness. So many precious memories. I couldn't breathe. The walls seemed to close in as the magnitude of Laurel's deception hit me. She hadn't just fabricated our relationship. She'd rewritten my entire history. "That's enough." Harris's voice cut through the chaos. He strode to the front of the room, unplugging the projector. "This is a wedding, not a slideshow. Let's get back to celebrating the happy couple." As the guests reluctantly dispersed, Laurel cornered me, her eyes blazing. "Why are you doing this?" I hissed. "What could you possibly gain?" For a moment, her mask slipped, revealing a depth of pain and anger I hadn't expected. "You have everything," she spat. "The career, the respect, the man who loves you. I'm just taking what should have been mine." Before I could respond, Josh appeared, looking bewildered. "Laurel, what's going on? Why is Naomi upset?" Laurel's demeanor instantly changed, tears welling in her eyes. "Oh, Josh, Naomi's trying to ruin our special day. She's always been jealous of our relationship." I watched in disbelief as Josh comforted her, shooting me an accusatory glance. The injustice of it all hit me like a physical blow. Why did I ever think Josh's approval mattered? I muttered, more to myself than anyone else. Harris was at my side in an instant, his presence a steadying force. "Naomi, we need to go. This isn't healthy for you." As we turned to leave, Laurel's composure cracked entirely. She lunged at me, tears streaming down her face. "You can't leave. You can't abandon me again." Security intervened, holding Laurel back as she sobbed hysterically. The raw anguish in her voice made me pause. There was something more here, a deeper pain driving her actions. In that moment, I made a decision. I couldn't run from this. Whatever twisted game Laurel was playing, whatever wounds from her past were fueling this obsession, I needed to understand, for my own sake and maybe for hers too. I turned to Harris, my voice steady despite the turmoil inside. "I can't walk away. Not yet. There's more to this story, and I need to uncover the truth." Harris nodded, his eyes filled with concern and something deeper. Admiration, perhaps? "Then we'll face it together. Whatever comes next, you're not alone in this." As we left the chaos of the reception behind, I felt a strange mix of dread and determination. Laurel's breakdown had revealed the depths of her instability, but also hinted at a shared pain I couldn't ignore. The path ahead was uncertain, but one thing was clear. The web of lies surrounding us was about to unravel, and I had to be ready for whatever truths lay beneath. The days following Laurel's wedding meltdown blurred together in a haze of anxiety and sleepless nights. I couldn't shake the image of her tear-stained face, the raw anguish in her voice, as she accused me of abandoning her. It didn't make sense, but I knew there was a missing piece to this puzzle. Harris had been my rock through it all, a steady presence as we dug deeper into Laurel's past. We'd discovered she'd changed her name several times, leaving a trail of broken relationships and financial disasters in her wake. But why was she so fixated on me? As I pored over another stack of documents in Harris's office, my phone buzzed. Josh's name flashed on the screen. I hesitated, then answered. "Naomi, I need to see you." His voice was urgent, tinged with fear. "It's about Laurel. Please, I don't know who else to turn to." Against my better judgment, I agreed to meet him at a nearby park. Harris insisted on coming with me, his protective instincts on high alert. Josh was already there when we arrived, pacing nervously. He looked haggard, nothing like the confident man I'd once loved. "What's going on, Josh?" I asked, keeping my distance. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. "Laurel's gone off the deep end. She's been ranting about you, about how you stole her life. I found plans in her notebook, detailed plans about ruining your career, your reputation. She's obsessed, Naomi." My blood ran cold. "Why are you telling me this now?" "Because I finally realized how wrong I've been," Josh's voice cracked. "About everything. About you. About Laurel. I've been such a fool." As he spoke, memories flooded back. The constant criticism, the subtle put-downs, the way he'd slowly chipped away at my self-esteem during our relationship. I felt a surge of anger, not just at Josh, but at myself for allowing it for so long. "It's easier to promise the moon when you're cornered, isn't it, Josh?" I said bitterly. He flinched at my words. "I know I hurt you, Naomi. I was selfish and manipulative. But please, you have to believe me about Laurel. She's dangerous." Before I could respond, Harris stepped forward. "We appreciate the warning, Josh, but I think it's time you step back and let Naomi move on with her life." Josh's eyes widened as he looked between us, realization dawning. "You two are together?" Harris finished, taking my hand. "And I won't let anyone hurt Naomi again. Not Laurel, and not you." As we turned to leave, Josh called out desperately, "I still love you, Naomi. I know I don't deserve it, but please, give me another chance." I froze, a whirlwind of emotions threatening to overwhelm me. Part of me, the part that still ached from our shared history, wanted to believe him. But as I looked at Harris, steady and supportive beside me, I knew what I had to do. "No, Josh," I said firmly. "What we had is over. I've moved on, and it's time you did too." We walked away, leaving Josh standing alone in the fading sunlight. As we reached the car, my phone chimed with a text. Unknown number. "I warned you to stay away, sister dear. Now you'll pay. Check your email." With shaking hands, I opened my inbox. There, sent to everyone in my contact list, including my boss and colleagues, were documents detailing the embezzlement from my previous job, the secret I'd buried so deeply, the mistake I'd made out of desperation to help my mother. "Oh God," I whispered, showing Harris the screen. "She's ruined everything." Harris pulled me close. "We'll fight this, Naomi. Together. I promise you, we'll find a way through." But as the weight of Laurel's revenge settled over me, I couldn't help but wonder if this was a battle I could win. My career, my reputation, my future, everything I'd worked so hard for was crumbling around me. And somewhere out there, Laurel was watching, reveling in the chaos she'd created. The final showdown was coming, and I knew that only one of us would be left standing when the dust settled. The world around me crumbled as I stared at my phone, Laurel's vengeful email burning into my retinas. My career, my reputation, everything I'd worked so hard for was in jeopardy. Harris's arm around my shoulders felt like the only thing keeping me from collapsing. "We need to get ahead of this," Harris said, his voice steady despite the storm raging around us. "Let's go to your office. We'll talk to HR, explain the situation." I nodded numbly, allowing him to guide me to the car. The drive to the office was a blur, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. As we stepped into the elevator, my phone buzzed again. "Josh." "Naomi, please, I need to see you. It's urgent." I showed Harris the message, my hand trembling. "What should I do?" He frowned. "It could be a trap. Laurel might be using him to get to you. Or he might have information that could help," I countered, surprising myself with the strength in my voice. "I need to know, Harris. I need to end this." Reluctantly, he agreed, and we arranged to meet Josh at a nearby coffee shop. When we arrived, Josh was already there, looking haggard and desperate. "Naomi, thank God," he said, standing as we approached. "Laurel's gone. She emptied our accounts and disappeared. I think she might be coming for you." My blood ran cold. "What do you mean, coming for me?" Josh's eyes darted nervously around the cafe. I found her journals. She's been planning this for years, Naomi. The wedding, the fake sisterhood, it was all part of some twisted revenge plot. She blames you for something that happened in her past, something about her real sister. The pieces suddenly clicked into place. The temp job, I whispered. 5 years ago, I was on the hiring committee. We didn't choose her sister for a position. She was devastated. And now she's out to destroy you, Harris finished, his jaw clenched. Josh nodded miserably. I'm so sorry, Naomi. I should have seen through her lies. I was weak and I let her manipulate me. But I want to make it right. Please, let me help you stop her. For a moment, I saw a glimmer of the man I once loved. Vulnerable, sincere. But as I looked at Harris, steady and supportive beside me, I knew there was no going back. I appreciate the warning, Josh, I said softly. But this isn't your fight anymore. Please forget about me, forever. It's time we both moved on. The hurt in his eyes was palpable, but I stood firm. As Josh left, shoulders slumped in defeat, I turned to Harris. We need to find Laurel before she does any more damage. Just then, my phone chimed with a new email. My breath caught as I read the subject line, Your mother says hello, sister dear. With shaking hands, I opened the message. There was a photo of my estranged mother, Grace, bound and gagged in what looked like an abandoned warehouse. The message below chilled me to the bone. Time to face your past, Naomi. Come alone to the address below, or Mommy Dearest pays the price for your sins. I showed Harris the screen, my mind reeling. She has my mother. I have to go. Harris gripped my shoulders, his eyes intense. Not alone. We'll call the police. No, I cut him off. You don't know Laurel. She'll hurt my mother if I don't play by her rules. I have to do this myself. Naomi, please, Harris pleaded. Let me help you. We can face this together. I cupped his face in my hands, memorizing every line and curve. I love you, Harris, but this is my battle to fight. I need to end this once and for all. Before he could protest further, I turned and ran, hailing a taxi and leaving Harris behind. As the city blurred past the windows, I steeled myself for the confrontation ahead. Laurel had taken everything from me, my past, my present, and now she threatened my future. But I was done being a victim. It was time to reclaim my life, no matter the cost. The taxi pulled up to a dilapidated warehouse on the outskirts of town. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out, ready to face my tormentor and end this nightmare once and for all. The warehouse loomed before me, a hulking shadow against the twilight sky. My heart raced as I pushed open the rusted door, stepping into the gloom. Laurel? I called out, my voice echoing in the cavernous space. I'm here. Let my mother go. A chilling laugh rang out, and Laurel emerged from the shadows, her eyes wild with a manic gleam. Behind her I saw my mother, Grace, bound to a chair, fear etched across her face. Welcome home, sister? Laurel sneered. Ready to pay for what you've done? Laurel, please, I pleaded, inching closer. Whatever happened in the past, we can talk about it. Just let my mother go. She laughed bitterly. Talk? Like you talked to my sister before crushing her dreams? Do you even remember her, Naomi? Sarah Jacobs, the girl you rejected for that job 5 years ago? The memory hit me like a physical blow. Sarah, a bright-eyed candidate, devastated by our decision. I'm sorry. We had no idea. Sorry doesn't cut it, Laurel screamed, brandishing a gun. Sarah killed herself because of you, and now you're going to feel that same pain. Time seemed to slow as Laurel turned the gun towards my mother. Without thinking, I lunged forward, tackling Laurel to the ground. We grappled fiercely, the gun between us. A deafening bang echoed through the warehouse. For a moment, everything was still. Then warmth spread across my side. I looked down to see crimson blooming on my shirt. No! Laurel's anguished cry pierced the air. She scrambled back, the gun clattering to the floor. I didn't mean. Suddenly, the warehouse doors burst open. Harris rushed in, followed by police officers. Naomi! He cried, racing to my side. As the officers subdued Laurel, Harris cradled me in his arms. Stay with me, love, he whispered, pressing his hand to my wound. Help is coming. Through the haze of pain, I saw my mother being untied, tears streaming down her face. Naomi, I'm so sorry, she sobbed. For everything. I reached out, grasping her hand. It's okay, Mom. We'll make it right. As paramedics swarmed around us, I locked eyes with Laurel one last time. The hatred in her gaze had melted away, replaced by a look of shocked remorse. In that moment, I saw not a monster, but a broken woman consumed by grief. "I forgive you," I whispered, not sure if she could hear me, but I needed to say it. For her, for Sarah, and for myself. The world faded to black as I was lifted onto a stretcher. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a hospital room, Harris dozing in a chair beside me. Sunlight streamed through the window, a new day dawning. As Harris stirred, his eyes lighting up at seeing me awake, I felt a profound sense of peace wash over me. "I've finally seen the light," I murmured, squeezing his hand. "All thanks to you." He leaned in, pressing a gentle kiss to my forehead. "We made it through together," he said softly, "and we'll face whatever comes next the same way." In the days that followed, as I recovered and the legal proceedings against Laurel began, I found myself reflecting on the tangled web that had brought us all to this point. Josh, humbled by his mistakes, reached out to make amends before moving across the country for a fresh start. My mother and I began the slow process of rebuilding our relationship, years of misunderstandings finally being addressed. And Laurel, facing the consequences of her actions, started the long journey towards healing and redemption. I visited her once before the trial, offering forgiveness and encouraging her to seek help. It wasn't easy, but it was necessary, for both of us. As Harris and I stood on the balcony of our new apartment, watching the sun set on another day, I felt a sense of hope I hadn't experienced in years. The shadows of the past were finally receding, making way for a brighter future. "Ready for our new beginning?" Harris asked, wrapping his arms around me. I smiled, leaning into his embrace. "More than ready. It's time to write our own story, together." As the first stars appeared in the twilight sky, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, I had the strength to face them. The web of shadows had been untangled, and in its place, a tapestry of love, forgiveness, and second chances was being woven. At last, I was truly home.